Hey everyone, tonight we'll delve into the gilded cage of Mount Olympus, but not from the perspective of a god or even a hero. We're going to explore what life was like for those who saw everything, yet were seen by no one. An Olympian servant. Imagine standing on a precipice of swirling, pearlescent cloud, the air thrumming with a power so immense it makes your teeth ache. Below you, the mortal world is a patchwork quilt of green and blue, impossibly distant. Above, golden spires pierce a sky that is not blue, but a shimmering, eternal dawn. You are about to walk halls where divine whispers carry the weight of mortal fates. And you probably want to believe what you are about to hear about the true nature of these perfect, immortal beings. So, before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to see where you're listening from, so post your city and the local time in the comments below. Now close your eyes, imagine the ancient mountains, and let's unravel this epic tale together. The journey does not begin with a climb. There are no sun-drenched marble steps, no glorious procession through cheering crowds of nymphs and satyrs. It begins with a feeling of being pulled inward, nauseating lurch as the world you know is squeezed into a single point of light and then extinguished. You are not walking. You are being conveyed, drawn through a passage that has no physical dimension. The air, or what passes for it, is cold and thin, tasting of static and ozone. There is no sound of wind, only a deep, resonant hum that seems to originate from inside your own skeleton. A vibration that shakes loose memories and leaves you feeling hollowed out, scoured clean. You have a fleeting memory of touching a smooth, strangely warm stone in a field, a stone your village elder warned everyone away from. It looked like any other rock, but you now understand it was a hook, a lure cast into the mortal world. This method of travel is an act of supreme indifference. It is not designed for comfort or even for survival. It is a utility, a means of moving an object from one place to another, and you are the object. The darkness is absolute, a pressure that feels like being at the bottom of a freezing ocean. Time loses all meaning. Is it moments or is it lifetimes that you spend in this crushing void? A strange, almost historical thought surfaces in the panic. You once saw a drawing of the Amphilis stone at Delphi, the supposed navel of the world. The guide had called it the center of the earth, a point of sacred connection. You now realize it was just the public-facing monument, the inert symbol for something terrifyingly real. The true Omphalos is not a single stone, but a network of hidden anchors, and you have just been reeled in on one of its lines. Suddenly, the pressure vanishes. You are expelled, not gently placed, but spat out onto a surface of what looks like polished obsidian. You land on your hands and knees, gasping. The air that rushes into your lungs thick and heavy, like breathing in honey and lightning. It's intoxicating and terrifying. Before you can even process the ringing in your ears or the vertigo, a presence is beside you. You don't see it arrive. It's just there. You look up and see a figure that is barely a figure at all, a shimmering outline of a nymph made of agitated air. This is an aura, a spirit of the breeze, but not the gentle kind that poets sing of. Her form is a constant silent flicker, and where her eyes should be are just two voids of deeper stillness. Her duty, you will later learn, is to manage this particular terminus. She is a forgotten deity, assigned a forgotten task. And her millennia of thankless work have worn away everything but the barest outline of her being. She doesn't speak. She simply points a translucent finger, the tip of which crackles with a faint blue energy. Your gaze follows her gesture, and the sheer impossibility of what you see nearly sends you back to your knees. You are in a vast open-air corridor, carved not from stone, but from solidified cloud, held in place by shimmering bands of golden light. The floor beneath you is a mirror, but it does not reflect the sky above. Instead, it swirls with nebulous colors, patterns of deep blue and violent crimson. In the distance, structures of impossible grace and scale rise, gleaming under a light that comes from no sun. The architecture curves and soars in ways that defy mortal geometry, singing with a silent, harmonic power. This is Mount Olympus. But there is no joy in the revelation. There is no awe, only a profound and stomach-churning sense of misplacement. You are a field mouse in an eagle's nest, a drop of salt water in a chalice of divine wine. You are not invited here, You were summoned, procured. The silent nymph nudges you forward with a touch that feels like a burn, and a freeze all at once, the first command in a life that will now be defined by them. As you take your first unsteady step into the heart of divinity, you know you are not a guest, you're equipment. But the question that remained was, equipment for what purpose? The airy nymph glides ahead, her form a constant shimmer against the impossible architecture. You follow your mortal footsteps, feeling clumsy and loud on the silent, solidified clouds. You are led into a hall so vast it seems to contain its own horizon. The ceiling is an ever-shifting starscape, constellations wheeling in sped-up time. Their light casting long, dynamic shadows that dance like living things. Pillars of what looks like white marble veined with pure lightning hold the celestial canopy aloft, each one humming with a low, resonant frequency that you feel in your bones. There are no torches, no windows, yet the hall is filled with a soft, golden luminescence that seems to emanate from the very air itself. This is a place of absolute power, and its beauty is a weapon, designed to crush the spirit of any who do not belong. The nymph stops, her form wavering as she turns to you. She produces a cloth from the air, a square of fabric that seems to drink the light around it. It is impossibly soft, yet has a strange weight, as if it were damp. She presses it into your hand. The texture is unlike anything you've ever felt. It's slick and slightly warm, like living skin. You will learn much later that these cloths are woven from the shed cocoons of hypnosilkworms, ethereal creatures that feed on the stray anxieties that drift through the halls of Olympus. The cloth literally hungers for emotional residue. She points again, this time to a section of the gleaming black floor. Your task is clear: polish it. It seems a simple, menial task, something a servant would do. You kneel, the cold of the floor seeping through your simple clothing, and place the strange cloth on the surface. You make the first circular motion, and your breath catches in your throat. The floor does not reflect your face, does not show the stardusted ceiling or the lightning-veined pillars. As you wipe, the swirling nebulae within the obsidian-like material coalesce. For a fraction of a second, an image appears, sharp and clear. You see the face of Zeus, but it is not the regal bearded visage from the statues. His brow is furrowed, his eyes wide with a flash of primal fear, the terror of a king who constantly dreads the coup. The image is gone as quickly as it came, dissolved back into swirling mist. You push the cloth again, a tremor in your hand. Another face appears. Hera. Her perfect features are twisted not with righteous anger, but with a petty venomous jealousy. Her gaze is fixed on a distant riverbank where a laughing nymph is braiding flowers into her hair, oblivious to the queen's consuming hatred. The feeling radiating from the image is so potent, so acidic, that you almost recoil. You keep wiping, compelled by a morbid, terrifying curiosity. You see Ares, the god of war, not on a battlefield, but alone in an armory. His hand clenched so tight his knuckles are white. He isn't angry. He is frustrated, replaying a lost skirmish, a miscalculation, a moment of weakness that no one else would ever have noticed. Then Aphrodite, whose face is a mask of pure panic as she leans close to a mirror, seeing a single imagined line at the corner of her eye. This is not a floor. It is a confessional. It's a psychic drain. It absorbs the stray, ugly thoughts the Olympians would never dare show one another. Your job is not to clean it. It is to erase the evidence of their imperfections. You are not a polisher. You are a psychic janitor, wiping away the grime of divine insecurity. The swirling patterns on the floor remind you of tales of the labyrinth of Crete, a maze so complex that no one could escape. But that was a maze of walls and corridors. This is a labyrinth of the mind, and the Minotaur at its center is the terrifying truth of the god's own emotional fragility. As you work, your movements becoming mechanical, your mind reeling, you understand that your first task is also your first, most dangerous lesson. The beings who command the thunder and the tides are ruled by the same petty fears and vanities as the mortals they so carelessly dismiss. But the question that remained was, if these perfect beings are so deeply flawed, what monstrous acts are they capable of to protect the illusion of their perfection? You finish the designated section, and the floor under your hands feels quiescent. The frenetic energy is gone. The nymph, who's been watching with her unnerving stillness, gives a single-minute nod before dissolving into a gust of wind, leaving you utterly alone in the silent, magnificent, and terrifyingly fragile heart of power. The silence in the grand hall presses in on you, a living entity. The nymph is gone, and you are left standing over a floor that holds the ugliness of gods. You feel watched, not by a single pair of eyes, but by the very architecture of the place. The golden light seems to congeal, the air grows thick with unspoken history. You don't know how long you stand there, frozen, before a soft scraping sound breaks the stillness. From behind one of the colossal pillars, an old man shuffles into view. He is stooped, his tunic the same simple, undyed fabric as your own, but frayed at the edges. His face is a roadmap of exhaustion, but his eyes are sharp. One is a normal, watery blue. The other is a perfect sphere of polished lapis lazuli, flecked with glittering pyrite, a starfield in miniature. He stops a few feet away, his gaze sweeping over you, taking in your trembling form. His voice, when he speaks, is a dry rustle, like dead leaves skittering across stone. So, you survived the passage. And the floor? Good. That's more than some. He gestures vaguely at the hall around you. You think this is power? He asks, his human eye narrowing. This gleaming facade? This is just the stage. The real Olympus, the one that will kill you, is invisible. It exists in the spaces between us. He introduces himself as Lyros and explains that he has been here longer than most of the rivers in the mortal world have had names. He is your unofficial guide to the treacherous landscape of the unseen. You are less than nothing here, he says, not with cruelty, but with the flat finality of a physician delivering a terminal diagnosis. Your only value is in what you see, what you hear, and who you tell. And choosing wrong, even once, is the end. He explains the hierarchy. Down in the mortal world, a household might have its okitai, slaves who are part of the domestic unit, their status rising and falling with the master's favor. Here that concept is twisted into a lethal political game. There are factions, alliances as shifting and deadly as a viper's nest. First, there are Zeus's eyes. These servants, Lyros whispers, are his spies. They don't wear a uniform. Eye identified only by the faint, almost imperceptible aura of fear they project. They trade whispers of disloyalty for a fragile, temporary security under the king's paranoid protection. Then come Hera's whispers. These are the servants loyal to the queen. They are masters of silence and subtlety, moving through the halls like ghosts, collecting evidence of Zeus's indiscretions, cataloging the slights against their mistress. Their weapon is information, and they are patient, waiting for the perfect moment to deploy it for maximum damage. Separate from them are the forge hands, the servants of Hephaestus. They are often looked down upon, covered in soot and smelling of metal and ozone. But they are the ones who understand the true mechanics of this place, the hidden passages, the maintenance conduits for the lightning pillars, the behavioral quirks of the living automata. They are isolated, but their knowledge is a form of power no one else possesses. And at the top, just below the gods themselves, are the nectar pourers. They serve at the divine banquets. They are the elite, the closest to the source of power. They hear the unfiltered conversations, the drunken proclamations, the secret deals. This proximity makes them influential but also turns them into lightning rods. A spilled drop of wine, a misheard order, an awkward glance can result in being blinked out of existence. Lyros absently touches the stone that serves as his eye. A gift, he says, his voice laced with an ancient irony. From Hermes. I saw him swap a message scroll meant for Demeter with a fake one. A harmless prank, he thought. He caught me watching. Instead of killing me, he decided to be poetic. He gave me an eye that could see things more clearly. The lapis lazuli eye, he explains, doesn't see the present, emotional residues left on objects and people. It is a curse that has paradoxically kept him alive by allowing him to read the hidden histories of the halls. He tells you of a new arrival, a girl from Arcadia, full of life, who thought that Ernest's hard work would earn her favor. She saw one of Hera's whispers pocket a small vial of something from Apollo's infirmary. Believing she was doing the right thing, she reported it to one of Zeus's eyes. The next day, the girl was gone. In her place was a small, drab bird that perched on the archways, singing a single, mournful note, over and over. A reminder. You have no faction, Lyros concludes, his gaze intense. That makes you a target for all of them, and a potential asset to each. They will test you. They will try to claim you. He leans closer, his breath smelling of dust and forgotten spices. The most dangerous being on this mountain isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one everyone pretends not to see. He then turns and shuffles away, melting back into the shadows he came from, leaving you with his chilling words. You are standing in the most beautiful place in creation. A battlefield where the weapons are secrets and the soldiers are invisible. But the question that remained was, in a war with no heroes, fought in the shadows of gods, how do you choose a side when loyalty itself is a death sentence? Days, or what pass for days, in the eternal dawn of Olympus, bleed into one another. Your life settles into a rhythm of silent, thankless tasks. You sweep dust that is not dust, but crystallized time from corners of empty rooms. Carry bundles of ambrosia-scented linen that feels unsettlingly warm to the touch. You learn to make yourself small, to fade into the background, to become part of the scenery. Lyros's warning echoes in your mind, and you watch everything, trusting no one. You see the subtle signals. A servant brushing their left shoulder as a sign of allegiance to Hera's faction. Another tracing a faint lightning bolt pattern on a dusty table to signal a report for Zeus. It is a silent, deadly language, and you are an illiterate observer. One cycle, you are assigned a new duty, serving nectar at a small informal gathering of the gods. This is a terrifying leap in status. You are no nectar pourer. This is a test. Lyros finds you moments before, pressing a small, smooth river stone into your palm. Hold this, he whispers, his lapici swirling with ancient light. It's from a tributary of the Lethe. It won't make you forget, but it will dull the edges of what you hear. It's the only reason I'm still sane. You close your fist around the cool, oddly calming stone as you are ushered toward a private terrace. The air here is even more charged, thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and something else, something wild and electric. Zeus is there, holding court, not with a booming voice, but with a quiet, intense presence that forces everyone to lean in. Hera sits beside him, a statue of regal discontent. Her smile is thin and sharp as a shard of ice. Apollo is tuning his lyre, the casual plucks of its strings sending shivers down your spine. Artemis stands apart, her silver eyes fixed on the distant phantom moon that hangs in the Olympian sky. Your hands tremble as you lift the heavy golden pitcher, its contents shimmering with an internal light. The nectar smells of honey, sunlight, and 1,000 forgotten summers. You move with painstaking care, your entire being focused on the single act of pouring this divine liquid without spilling a drop. You approach Hera first, your head bowed. You fill her goblet, a chalice carved from a single enormous pearl. As you pull the pitcher back, your sleeve brushes against the arm of her throne. It is a minute accidental touch, but the static charge that jolts through you is immense. For a split second, her mask of serene indifference drops. Her eyes, which you risk a glance at, are not looking at Zeus or any other god. They're looking at you, but it is not a look of anger. It is a look of calculation, as if she is weighing your soul on a scale. Then, just as you are about to move away, she leans forward, her lips barely moving. A single word drifts into your ear, a whisper not meant for you, but which you are now an unwilling vessel for. The word is McKean. It hangs in the air between you, heavy and cold. It's just a name, a place. You know of it from stories. It was a great citadel of mortals, the home of heroes and powerful kings. A place of legend, but one that has been dust for centuries. Why would the queen of the gods whisper the name of a fallen mortal city? The word is imbued with an unnatural weight, a resonance that the Lethe stone in your hand cannot entirely dampen. It is not just a name. It is a key, a threat, a promise. The air around Hera seems to grow colder, the light from Apollo's lyre bending away from her as if afraid. See Zeus's hand tighten on the arm of his throne, the knuckles white? Rather, he felt it. He felt it. He felt the shift in power that single, cryptic word caused. Now back away, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You continue your task, your movements now jerky and clumsy. You pour for Apollo, and the music from his lyre seems to falter for a beat, a moment of discord in the perfect harmony. You pour for Artemis, and her gaze snaps to you, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. You have been tainted by the whisper marked. You are no longer an anonymous servant. You are now a piece on the board, a walking secret you don't even understand. You remember stories of how the ancient citadel of Mycenae, known in Greek as Mykion, was said to have been built by the Cyclopes, lending its walls a mythic, impenetrable strength. But Hera's whisper didn't speak of strength. It hinted at a weakness, a hidden history connecting the queen to the mortal world in a way Zeus clearly fears. You have been weaponized, turned into a living message. But the question that remained was, what was the message, and for whom was it truly intended? Was it a warning to Zeus, or a signal to some unseen ally? You retreat from the terrace, the golden pitcher feeling impossibly heavy, your every muscle screaming to run. But there is nowhere to run to. The word Mycenae is no longer a sound. It is a brand on your consciousness, a cold spot that will not warm. You return the pitcher to the kitchens, a place usually bustling with the low-grade chaos of satyrs arguing over spice racks and nymphs meticulously arranging fruit. But today a hush has fallen. The air itself has changed. The golden light of Olympus seems dimmer, tinged with a bruised purple hue at the edges, and a low, intermittent rumble vibrates through the marble floors. It is the sound of a distant, dry thunderstorm, a storm with no rain, only menace. Zeus's paranoia is not an emotion he feels. It is a climate he creates. Lyros had tried to explain it once, but now you feel it. Now, it is a physical pressure, a weight on your chest that makes each breath a conscious effort. You learn from the fearful glances of other servants that this phenomenon has a name: the Aegis field. While mortals imagine the Aegis as a shield or a breastplate brandished in battle, its true nature is far more terrifying. It is not an object, but an extension of Zeus's will, a psychic broadcast of his divine authority, and more potently, his divine fear. When his suspicion is aroused, he doesn't just look for enemies. He floods the entire mountain with an atmosphere of dread that is designed to make secrets suffocate and rise to the surface. Lesser beings feel it as a nameless anxiety, a sudden urge to confess sins they have not committed. Your world shrinks. The other servants, who once might have offered a furtive nod, now avert their gazes. They give you a wide berth in the corridors, as if you are radiating a plague. You are contaminated by Hera's whisper, and standing too close might mean being caught in the inevitable lightning strike. Lyros is the only one who meets your eye, and he does so from across a vast courtyard, a flicker of profound pity in his human eye before he turns away. The message is clear. You are on your own. Your tasks, once menial, are now subtle traps. We're ordered to sort a basket of enchanted threads by their exact shade. But the light in the room inexplicably shifts and writhes, making colors bleed into one another. It is a task designed for failure, an invitation to break down and confess. You work silently, your fingers trembling, knowing you are being watched, your frustration measured. One evening, while clearing away discarded laurel wreaths, you overhear Ori, the same kind of air spirits who greeted you, whispering by a fountain. They think they are unheard, their voices like the rustling of leaves. They speak of the old fear, the one that consumed Cronus, Zeus's father. They murmur about the island of Crete, about the dark mouth of the Dictaean cave, where the infant Zeus was hidden away to save him from being devoured by his paranoid father. The irony is, a cold weight in your gut, the king of the gods who rose to power by defeating a father driven mad by the fear of being overthrown, is now walking the exact same path. He has inherited the madness of his own bloodline. The entire universe bends to his will, but he is a slave to the terror of losing it. The culmination of this pressure comes not in a grand confrontation, but in a moment of chilling silence. You are walking down a long, deserted colonnade, the ever-present rumble of thunder your only companion. From the far end, Zeus himself appears. He is not flanked by guards or advisors. He is utterly alone, walking with a slow, deliberate pace. He is not looking at you. His gaze is fixed on the far horizon, a canvas of impossible celestial beauty. Panic seizes you. You want to flatten yourself against a pillar to become invisible? But there is nowhere to hide. Protocol dictates you must stand still, head bowed, as a god passes. As he draws level with you, he still doesn't look, but you feel it. The full, unshielded force of his scrutiny washes over you like a physical wave. It is not a glance, it is an invasion. You feel a psychic pressure probe your mind, sifting through your memories, tasting your fear. The word Mickean flashes in your thoughts, bright and searing, and you feel him notice it. The pressure intensifies for a heartbeat, a moment of infinite crushing weight. It feels like he is peeling you open, layer by layer, with nothing but the force of his attention. Then he is past. The pressure recedes instantly. You are left gasping, leaning against the pillar for support, your body trembling uncontrollably. He did not speak, did not strike, simply looked through you and saw the secret you carry. But the question that remained was, why leave you standing? When a god's suspicion can read your thoughts, and he knows you hold a secret from his queen, why allow you to live another moment? Unless your fear itself was the message he wanted to send back. The Aegis field recedes, not because Zeus's paranoia has lessened, but because it has found a new focus. The invisible tension that gripped the mountain shifts, congregating around the gilded halls of the queen. You feel it as a subtle change in the light, a crispness in the air that hums with unspoken accusations. You are no longer the focal point of the king's suspicion, but a piece of collateral damage, a witness to the silent, brutal war between the divine king and queen. Your duties now take you near Hera's private gardens, a place of stunning, aggressive beauty where the roses have thorns of obsidian and the streams murmur with grievances. You are tasked with pruning a grove of silver olive trees when you see it. Near a secluded marble bench, a young Oread, a mountain nymph, is on her knees. Name is Cressa, and you have seen her before. Her laughter like the sound of wind chimes, her presence a small pocket of warmth in this cold place. She had been a favorite of Apollo, often called upon to sing duets with him. Her mortal-tinged voice, a perfect, fragile counterpoint to his divine harmony. Now, she is utterly still, her face a mask of placid horror. Hera stands before her, a picture of calm, regal authority. There is no shouting, no dramatic gestures, no bolts of divine energy. There is only a terrifying, concentrated silence. Hera is not transforming the nymph into a beast or a flower, the typical punishments you've heard of in stories. This is something far more cruel, more psychologically devastating. The queen reaches out and gently, almost tenderly, touches the nymph's throat. Cressa flinches, but no sound escapes her. You realize with a jolt of horror that Hera is not silencing her. She is erasing the very concept of sound from the nymph's perception. Cressa is not being muted, she is being plunged into a world where sound has never existed. Her memory of laughter, of music, of speech, is being surgically removed from her consciousness. You watch, hidden behind the shimmering leaves of a silver olive. Yes. The nymph's eyes dart around, wide with a confusion that is rapidly curdling into madness. She opens her mouth as if to scream, but her mind no longer possesses the framework for what a scream is. The connection between terror and vocalization is gone. She claws at her own throat, then her ears, her movements frantic, utterly silent. The universe for her has become a silent film, and she is the only one who doesn't know the script has been erased. Hera watches this unfold with a detached clinical interest, like a scholar observing an experiment. The specific punishment you will learn is an old and vicious one. A curse whispered to be as ancient as the Titans themselves, known as Aphenos, the unvoicing. It was a punishment reserved not for enemies, but for those whose voices brought a joy the Punisher could not tolerate. This act is not a fit of rage. It is a calculated message to Apollo, a warning about where his affections wander. It's also a demonstration for the rest of Olympus. This is what happens when you delight my husband too much. It is a punishment born of jealousy, but delivered with the cold precision of a surgeon. The historical accounts of Hera's wrath often paint her as a shrew, a jealous wife. But seeing this, you understand she is something far more dangerous, a masterful strategist of psychological warfare. This isn't about hurting the nymph. It's about controlling her husband by poisoning everything he finds beautiful outside of her. Hera turns and glides away, leaving the now broken Oread scrabbling silently in the perfect grass. The other nymphs and servants who had been working nearby, pretending not to watch, slowly emerge, their faces pale.
Ow.
No one goes to the girl. They cannot.
Ouch.
To show sympathy would be to align themselves with the punished, to mark themselves as the next target. A bizarre, almost comical detail catches your eye. Hera's sandals leave no footprints on the soft grass but where she stood. The blades of grass are not crushed but have turned a brittle crystalline white, as if flash frozen by her very presence. The display of absolute power is chilling. The silent nymph Cressa is eventually led away by two of Hera's impassive attendants. Her movements still jerky, her eyes reflecting a universe devoid of sound. She has been made into a living symbol of the queen's displeasure. You are left with the cold realization that the gods' punishments are not about justice. They are about communication, and their language is suffering. But the question that remained was, in this silent war of devastating cruelty, whose side was more terrifying to be on, the paranoid kings or the sadistic queens? Your duties shift again, a reprieve that feels more like a strategic relocation. You are sent away from the pristine high-tension halls of the royal court and dispatched to the smoky, roaring heart of the mountain, the forge of Hephaestus. The journey itself is a descent, down spiraling staircases carved into the living rock of Olympus, the air growing warmer and thicker with every step. The elegant hum of the upper levels is replaced by a deep, rhythmic, percussive beat, the mountain's true heart. You carry a sealed scroll, a request for some new trifle from one of the gods. Its contents irrelevant. The task is merely to deliver it. Merging into the forge is like stepping into a captured volcano. The cavern is immense, a cathedral of basalt and obsidian, ribbed with veins of glowing, unrefined metals. Rivers of molten bronze flow in channels cut into the floor, casting a fiery, dancing light on the vaulted ceiling. The air shimmers with heat and smells of ozone, hot iron, and something else, a sharp scent like petrichor after a lightning strike. In the center of it all stands Hephaestus. He is not the gnarled, hideous creature of mortal caricature. He is broad and immensely powerful, his movements filled with a deep, weary grace. His focus is absolute as he hammers a sheet of glowing metal, each strike precise, sending cascades of brilliant orange sparks into the gloom. He doesn't acknowledge your presence. His entire world is the object on the anvil. While you wait, you notice his helpers. They are the famed golden maidens, automata crafted by the smith god himself to assist him in his work. There are 3 of them, their forms perfectly sculpted from shimmering gold, with joints of silver and eyes made of brilliant sapphires. They move with an impossible liquid grace, fetching tools, stoking the fires, and polishing finished pieces. They are flawless, beautiful, and utterly silent. They are masterpieces of engineering, and they are the saddest things you have ever seen. At first, you can't place the feeling. They perform their duties with an efficiency that borders on terrifying. But as you watch, you start to see it. When Hephaestus is lost in his work and their immediate tasks are done, a strange stillness falls over them. One maiden, polishing a shield, will stop, her golden hand hovering inches from the surface. Her sapphire eyes, which moments before tracked every microscopic imperfection, will unfocus, staring into the fiery rivers of bronze as if seeing something else entirely. Her perfectly sculpted head tilts, a gesture of profound, listening melancholy. Another, who had been sorting raw ingots of celestial bronze, sits back on her heels, her metallic fingers tracing circles on her own forearm. A gesture of self-soothing that is so human it makes your breath catch. You recall the legends of Talos, the bronze giant Hephaestus, created to guard Crete, a colossal automaton of immense power. His one vulnerability was a single nail in his ankle that held his lifeblood of ichor. These maidens seem to be the opposite. They are exquisitely made, seemingly without flaw, yet their entire being is a vulnerability. Their perfection is the source of their pain. As you edge closer to deliver your scroll, you notice a bizarre detail, a faint, almost inaudible hum coming from the chest of each automaton. It's not the whirring of gears or the hum of mechanics. It is a melody, a fragmented, impossibly beautiful bar of music, so quiet it is almost a ghost of a sound. You realize that Hephaestus, in his profound loneliness, did not just build machines, he gave them a spark. Captured echoes a sliver of a lover's laugh, a chord from Apollo's lyre. The sound of a forgotten sea end placed these resonant fragments into their core as a power source. They are not alive, not truly. They are animated by a joy they can feel as a constant vibrating memory, but can never experience, express, or understand. They are living instruments built to play a single, beautiful, mournful note for an audience of one. Hephaestus finally finishes his task, plunging the glowing metal into a quenching trough with a deafening hiss. He turns to you, his face streaked with soot, his eyes holding the ancient weariness of a creator. He sees you looking at his maidens. He takes the scroll without a word, his calloused fingers brushing yours. "They are perfect," he says, his voice a low rumble like shifting rock. "They do not lie. They do not betray." He glances at the motionless maiden staring into the fire. Only remember, in that moment, the rhythmic clang of the distant hammers sounds less like creation and more like a funeral dirge. As you turn to leave the oppressive heat of the forge, you see the maidens stir, their brief reverie broken, turning to their flawless, silent, and eternal labor. But the question that remained was, which is the greater cruelty? To be a nymph unmade by a goddess's jealousy, or to be an automaton built by a god's loneliness, forever trapped with a soul that is not your own? From the primordial heat of the forge, you are sent to its antithesis, the private chambers of Aphrodite. The transition is a physical shock. You move from the scent of soot and metal to an atmosphere so thick with perfume, it feels like walking through water. The air is warm and humid, clinging to your skin, saturated with the scent of 1,000 different flowers, rose, tuberose, jasminol, blended into a single, overpowering chord of pure fragrance. The light here isn't the fiery glow of the forge or the golden luminescence of the main halls. No. It's a soft, pearlescent pink, filtered through vast gossamer curtains of sea silk that ripple in a non-existent breeze. The sound is a delicate, continuous whisper, the rustle of silks and the faint musical clink of countless tiny pearls sewn into tapestries. Your task is insultingly simple: to replace the water in a dozen crystal vases. You move through the opulent space, which feels less like a room and more like a shrine to self-obsession. Divans are draped with fabrics that shimmer with their own internal light, and mirrors, framed in gold and ivory, are angled to catch reflections from every conceivable viewpoint. The place is empty, yet it feels crowded with the lingering weight of the goddess's presence. Her vanity is a tangible force, coating every surface like a fine layer of dust. On a large circular daybed piled high with velvet cushions, something lies coiled like a sleeping serpent. It is not a piece of jewelry, not a belt of hammered gold as you might have imagined. It is a sash, a simple-looking girdle woven from a fabric that seems to be made of captured twilight. It shifts in color from deep indigo to soft rose, threaded with something that glitters like trapped starlight. This is the Kestos Hemas, her famed magical girdle. It lies there carelessly as if it were a common accessory, a testament to an arrogance so profound that the source of one's power needs no protection. You approach the daybed to plump a cushion that has been compressed, a minor task in your quest for invisibility. As you reach for the cushion, the back of your hand brushes against the woven fabric of the girdle. The contact lasts no more than a second, but a universe of experience detonates inside your mind. It is not a shock of static electricity. It is a shock of pure, unadulterated emotion. A tidal wave of longing, desire, and adoration crashes over you, so immense and so alien that it brings you to your knees. These feelings are not your own. They are a torrent of foreign passions, powerful, specific, and utterly hollow. You feel a sudden, desperate love for a Trojan prince with dark, brooding eyes. You feel an aching, hopeless infatuation with a handsome hunter who smells of pine and wild earth. You are overcome with a giddy, fluttering affection for a lame, star-covered god whose hands can create beauty from fire. These are not your memories, not your desires. They are echoes, psychic recordings of the passions the girdle has inspired in others, and they flood your system like a poison. It is a dizzying, sickening cacophony of emotion. You see flashes of faces, hear whispers of promises, feel the ghost of a touch on your skin. Understand? In that horrifying moment, that the girdle does not create love, it manufactures obsession. It is a finely tuned instrument that bypasses reason and plays directly on the most primal chemical strings of the soul. You remember the story? A piece of well-known lore of how Hera once came to Aphrodite, desperate, and borrowed this very girdle to seduce Zeus, and distract him from the battlefield of Troy. Mortals hear that tale and imagine a charming flirtation. But now, holding the residue of its power in your mind, you see it for what it was: a calculated act of emotional warfare, using a weapon of mass infatuation. The bizarre, unsettling truth of the artifact reveals itself to you in this psychic deluge. The threads of the girdle are not silk or wool. They feel like they were spun from something intangible, like the crystallized essence of a million mortal sighs, the distilled longing from a billion unanswered prayers for love. Aphrodite wears the collected desperation of the world as an accessory. You scramble back, breaking contact, a raw gasp tearing from your throat. The flood recedes, but it leaves a greasy psychic residue, a stain on your consciousness. Feel violated, your own quiet, simple emotions feeling thin and pathetic in comparison to the grand artificial passions you just experienced. The air, once merely perfumed, now smells cloying and chemical. The beautiful silks look like cheap costumes. You have seen the machinery behind the magic, and it is terrifyingly simple and profoundly ugly. Aphrodite is not the goddess of love. She is the architect of a perfect, addictive drug, and she dispenses it with the careless grace of a monarch scattering coins to a desperate crowd. But the question that remained was, now that you have felt this divine synthetic high, this perfect and empty passion, how can your own mortal heart ever feel full again? The phantom emotions stirred by Aphrodite's girdle cling to you for cycles. Psychic nausea that makes the world feel muted and gray. Your duties mercifully take you to a place of supposed order and clarity, the great library of Olympus, a domain often frequented by Apollo. You are tasked with cleaning and oiling the mechanisms of the orrery, a vast room-sized model of the cosmos that dominates the central chamber. The library itself is a space of serene, intimidating intellect. Scrolls are not piled on shelves, but float in ordered, shimmering columns, arranged by concepts mortals have yet to even name. The silence here is different from the rest of Olympus, is a silence not of emptiness, but of immense contained thought. Apollo is there, but he is not reading. He sits on a high-backed chair of polished cypress wood, his golden lyre resting in his lap. He isn't playing a grand heroic ode or a lively tune. He is plucking at the strings absently, one note at a time, creating a melody that is sparse, dissonant, and deeply unsettling. It's not music to entertain, it's music to dissect. The notes hang in the air like sharp crystalline structures, each one precise, cold, and perfect. This is not the sound of inspiration, it is the sound of analysis. As you work, your hands moving methodically over the brass and silver workings of the orrery, the music begins to have a strange effect. The seemingly random, disjointed notes start to coalesce in your mind. They aren't forming a melody. They are acting as keys, unlocking doors in your own perception. You look at the orrery, a masterpiece of Hephaestus's craft that shows the sun, moon, and stars wheeling in their perfect, predictable orbits. But as Apollo's music intensifies, the orbits begin to look wrong. You see the fine, almost invisible lines of influence stretching between the celestial bodies, the gravitational pull, the tidal locks. But the music reveals other lines, other forces. You see a shimmering thread of pure fear connecting the mortal world to the moon, a cord of desperate hope stretching towards the sun. The music is peeling back the skin of reality, revealing the emotional physics that truly govern the cosmos. You remember the ancient concept of the music of the spheres. The Pythagorean idea that the planets and stars move according to mathematical ratios is creating a divine, unheard symphony. Mortals imagined it as a perfect harmony. But what you are hearing, what Apollo is composing, is the truth of that symphony. It is not harmonious. It is a complex, often clashing composition of hope and terror, love and despair, ambition and resignation. The universe does not run on physics alone. It runs on the emotional energy of its inhabitants, and Apollo's music is a direct translation of that terrifying score. You risk a glance at the god. His eyes are closed, his brow furrowed in concentration. He is not merely playing music. He is listening to the universe and transcribing its secrets. A bizarre detail about his lyre, something you've never noticed before, becomes starkly apparent. The arms of the lyre are not made of wood or horn. They are made of polished, petrified bone. And the strings are not gut or sinew. They are fine-drawn strands of silver that seem to hum with a faint inner light, even when not being played. It is an instrument of chilling beauty, crafted not just for sound, but for resonance with the deeper structures of reality. Legend says his first lyre was crafted by Hermes from a tortoiseshell, but this instrument is something else entirely. An artifact of prophecy, not just performance. The music shifts, a new chord, sharper and more piercing than the others. Your mind is violently pulled away from the cosmos and thrown back into your own recent memories. You see yourself kneeling on the obsidian floor, the psychic residue of Zeus's paranoia clinging to you. You see Hera's lips moving, the word Makine, a cold weight in your mind. You see the silent, mad agony in Cress's eyes. You feel the hollow, synthetic passion from Aphrodite's girdle. The music is not creating these memories. It is stripping away your ability to lie to yourself about them. It forces you to see the raw, unvarnished truth of your own experiences. The paranoia wasn't just an atmosphere. It was an attempt to break you. The whisper wasn't just a secret. It was your conscription into a war. This punishment wasn't just cruelty, it was a political statement. The girdle's power wasn't just desire, it was a violation. The music forces an unwelcome clarity. You understand that Apollo, the god of truth, is the most dangerous of them all. He doesn't need to lie or deceive. His power lies in revealing the truths you are trying to hide from yourself. His perfect notes are scalpels, methodically cutting away the comfortable delusions that allow you to survive. The melody finally fades, the last note hanging in the air for an impossibly long time before dissolving into silence. Apollo opens his eyes, and they are the color of the sun seen through a clear winter sky. He looks directly at you, and you know with a certainty that freezes your blood, that he heard every ugly truth his music revealed in your soul. But the question that remained was, what does the God of truth do when he uncovers a secret that could destabilize the perfect, precarious order of his own divine family? You flee the library, the echoes of Apollo's music still vibrating in your bones. The truth he forced upon you is a physical weight, a sickness in your gut. You need to get away from the oppressive intellect of the library. The cloying perfume of Aphrodite's chambers, the paranoid hum of the central halls. You seek anonymity, and you walk aimlessly at first. Then, with a subconscious pull towards the wilder, unkempt edges of the mountain, the manicured cloud lawns and perfect colonnades give way to rugged, rocky paths and groves of ancient, gnarled trees that seem to predate the gods themselves. The air grows cool and clean, smelling of pine needles, damp earth, and the crisp scent of an autumn night, even in this place of eternal day. You find yourself in a vast, moon-drenched forest. There is no sun here, only the constant, unwavering light of a full moon that hangs in the dark sky like a silver medallion. This is the domain of Artemis. The ground is carpeted with a soft, mossy growth that muffles your footsteps, and the silence is profound, broken only by the distant, spectral call of a night owl. You press deeper into the woods, seeking the comfort of its deep shadows, and stumble upon a clearing. What you see there freezes you in place. Artemis is there, her silver hair braided with dark ivy, her form radiating an aura of cold, focused power. She's not alone. Her hunters are with her, a score of young women, all seemingly caught in that fleeting, liminal state between girlhood and womanhood. They are poised, their movements economical and silent, their faces etched with a seriousness that does not belong on such young features. They are not hunting. They are not laughing or resting. This is a ritual, silent, solemn ceremony that feels far more ancient than the gleaming temples below. One by one, the hunters approach the altar. Artemis dips her fingers into a silver bowl filled with what looks like pure, liquid moonlight. She turns to the first hunter and gently anoints her forehead. As she does, the hunter's form shimmers, her edges blurring for a moment, her eyes glowing with a faint, internal silver light before settling back into their normal, piercing gray. The goddess murmurs something too low for you to hear, but you feel the words resonate in the air, a pact being renewed, an oath reaffirmed. You had heard the tales of the Architoi, the little she-bears of Brauron, young Athenian girls who had entered the service of Artemis for a set number of years. performing sacred rites to appease the goddess. It was a temporary service, a rite of passage before they returned to their lives and married. A historical footnote. But as you watch this eternal silent ceremony, a chilling realization dawns on you. This is no temporary service. These are not girls passing through a phase. They are the chosen few whose service never ends. They are forever the architoi, trapped in a perfect, preserved state of pre-womanhood, their mortal lives forfeit in exchange for this cold, silvered immortality. Their eternal youth is not a gift. It is the central clause of a binding contract. They are frozen, removed from the river of time. They will never feel the slow ache of age, the warmth of a lover's embrace, the joy of holding their own child. They are perpetual, predatory adolescents, their humanity sacrificed for a place in the goddess's eternal hunt. Their immortality is a stasis, a beautiful, chilling prison of unending, unaging youth. They are bound to Artemis, but more than that, they are bound to the moonlight itself. As you watch, you notice a bizarre, unsettling detail. As the hunters stand motionless, their shadows on the mossy ground seem to subtly shift and writhe. Not in accordance with their bodies, but as if they are separate, restless entities, tethered unwillingly to their owners. Artemis herself turns to her quiver, propped against the dark altar. You see that her arrows are not fletched with bird feathers. They're fletched with razor-thin, crystalline slivers of solidified moonlight. They pulse with a faint, cold light, and you feel an almost imperceptible hum coming from them, a vibration of contained, violent energy. These are not merely projectiles. They are instruments of a specific, divine purpose, and they seem to hunger for it. As this thought crosses your mind, one of the hunters, the last to be anointed, stiffens. Her head snaps in your direction with an unnatural speed. Her silver-gray eyes, now faintly glowing, lock directly onto your hiding spot behind a thicket of night-blooming cereus. There is no flicker of curiosity in her gaze, no surprise. There is only the instantaneous, cold recognition of a predator that has scented its prey. She doesn't see a person. She sees a target, an anomaly in her perfectly ordered, moonlit world. You have not just trespassed in a goddess's sacred grove. You have stumbled into the midst of a pact that defines existence for these eternal killers. Your living, breathing, changing presence is an affront to its very nature. But the question that remained was, is an eternity of changeless perfection a gift of life, or is it just a more beautiful silver-lit cage? The hunter's gaze pins you. There is no escape. The forest that had seemed a refuge is now a cage, its shadows turning from comforting to menacing. Her hand moves not towards a bow, but in a subtle, silent gesture to her sisters. A dozen pairs of silver-gray eyes snap to your position. The air grows cold, the kind of absolute chill that precedes a frost. You are an insect under glass, observed with a detached, lethal curiosity. You expect an arrow. You expect the savage, silent attack of the pack. Instead, a voice, deep and resonant like a war drum, cuts through the tension. Enough. From the shadows on the far side of the clearing, Ares steps into the moonlight. He is not clad in his fearsome bronze armor, his helmet crowned with a plume of horsehair. He is dressed simply in a dark red tunic that seems to swallow the silver light. His presence is not the explosive, chaotic fury you would expect from the god of war. It is a heavy, compressed energy, the stillness of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His attention is not on the hunters, but on you. His eyes, the color of cooling embers, are unnervingly direct. Artemis turns, her expression a mask of cold annoyance. "This is my domain, brother, my hunt. And this one," Ares says, his voice low and devoid of emotion, "is not your prey." He takes a step forward, and the hunters instinctively take a half step back, not out of fear, but out of a primal respect for a different, more brutal kind of power. Ares is not the refined, patient predator that Artemis is violence incarnate, and his very presence disrupts the cold, clean order of her forest. He walks towards you, his footsteps making no sound on the mossy ground. He stops just a few feet from your hiding spot, doesn't command you to come out. He simply waits, his stillness more intimidating than any command. You slowly, hesitantly step out from behind the thicket, your hands raised in a gesture of surrender that feels utterly futile. His gaze sweeps over you, not with the invasive probing of Zeus, but with the practical, appraising quality. He is not reading your thoughts. He is assessing your worth, your potential, your breaking point. It feels like being weighed and measured by a master butcher. You've been busy, he says, and it is not a question. You've served the queen, felt the king's attention, listened to my brother's tedious music. You are collecting experiences. The way he says it sends a shiver down your spine. He doesn't see you as a person. He sees you as a crucible. A vessel in which the tensions of Olympus are being mixed and heated. You recall a lesser-known aspect of Ares' mythology, beyond the battlefield. In some cults, particularly in the northern regions of Greece, like Thrace, he was not just a god of slaughter, but a god of martial order, of the discipline that turns a mob into an army. He was a god of strategy, of understanding the dynamics of conflict. Mortals focus on his rage, but his true power is his intimate understanding of every facet of war, from the blind fury of a berserker to the cold calculus of a general. And he is looking at you as a piece in a very complex game. Hera's whisper, he says, his voice dropping even lower. Apollo's truth, Aphrodite's distractions. He seems to taste each word. They all play their games of influence and secrets. They think they are clever. A faint, mirthless smile touches his lips. They are amateurs. They fence with words and emotions. It's sloppy, inefficient. A bizarre, disturbing detail about him becomes apparent in the silver light. His right hand, which hangs loosely at his side, is not entirely flesh. From the knuckles down, his fingers are encased in what looks like scarred, blackened bronze. The metal fused so seamlessly with his skin that it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. It is not armor. It is a part of him, an ancient, brutal modification. These are the hands that have personally tested the breaking point of every weapon and every man. He sees your gaze flicker to his hand and then back to his face. A reminder, he says simply, that a blade is more honest than a promise. His attention lingers on you, and it is a profoundly uncomfortable feeling. It's not the sexualized danger of Aphrodite's power, or the intellectual threat of Apollo's. It is a purely pragmatic danger. He is looking at you and seeing not a servant, but a potential tool, a point of leverage, a way to introduce a more direct, more honest form of conflict into the silent, cold war of his siblings. His interest in you is not about protecting you from Artemis. It's about claiming you for his own, far more dangerous purposes. But the question that remained was, when the god of war saves you from the goddess of the hunt, is it an act of rescue, or is it merely a change of predators? Ares dismisses you with a curt nod, a gesture that carries the finality of a dropped blade. Artemis and her hunters watch you retreat, their silver eyes promising a postponed fate. You don't return to the main halls. Instead, a new summons finds you, delivered by a gust of wind that whispers a single instruction in your ear. It is an errand for Hermes. The task sounds deceptively simple. Deliver a small, sealed leather pouch to a shrine on the eastern peak of the mountain. No one else is available, the whisper insists. A convenient lie. This is another test, different from the others. Not a test of loyalty or discretion, but a test of navigation, of your ability to perceive the true nature of this place. You are given a simple map, sketched on a piece of papyrus, shows a winding path leading up a rocky slope to a small circular icon marked as the shrine. You set out, the pouch heavy in your hand. It feels empty, yet it has a strange, shifting weight, as if it contains a trapped insect. The path starts clearly enough, a trail of worn, gray stones, set into the cloud-like ground. But the further you walk, the more the landscape begins to subtly defy logic. You pass a distinctive landmark noted on the map, a waterfall of what looks like liquid starlight cascading into a crystal pool. You walk for what feels like another hour, the path looping back on itself through groves of shimmering, ethereal trees. Then, you pass the exact same waterfall again. You stop, your heart beginning to pound. You check the map. It shows a single linear path. You are sure you haven't turned back. You press on, more determined this time, marking your trail by scuffing the edge of the path with your heel. 10 minutes later, you are standing before the starlight waterfall for a third time, your own scuff mark clear on the ground before you. The path is not a path. It is a trap. Paradox. Olympus, you are beginning to understand, is not a single, stable location. It is a place where physical space is subordinate to divine will and perception. Its geography is layered, conceptual. You are walking on the public layer, the one designed for simple movement and grand processions. But Hermes' errand requires you to find a different layer, a hidden fold in the fabric of the mountain. You remember Leros's words, "The real Olympus is invisible." This is what he meant. You remember an obscure tale you once heard from a traveling philosopher. Story about the concept of apeiron, the Greek idea of the infinite, the boundless, the undefined. It was a theoretical concept, a philosophical abstraction about the primordial chaos from which the ordered world emerged. But here, on Olympus, it is not a theory. It is a feature of the landscape. Hermes, the god of travelers, boundaries, and tricksters, does not walk from point A to point B. He navigates the apeiron, finding the shortcuts, the desire lines between moments and intentions. And he is forcing you to learn. Frustrated and tired, you sit on a rock overlooking the taunting waterfall. You close your eyes, trying to block out the illogical reality around you. You focus on the destination, not the path. You picture the shrine on the eastern peak as described by the whispering wind, a simple pedestal of white stone, open to the sky, with the constellation of the Pleiades hanging directly above it. You focus on the intention of the journey. When you open your eyes, the world has shifted. The starlight waterfall is gone. The path ahead is different, fainter, marked not by stones, but by a subtle shimmer in the air. You have slipped into a different current of reality. You walk this new path, and the world around you is strange and fluid. Distant peaks seem to rush towards you, while nearby trees recede. The very air feels different, thinner, smelling of distant storms and unspoken possibilities. You see a bizarre, fleeting sight, a half-finished sculpture of a centaur that seems to be struggling to emerge from a block of raw marble. Its creator long since absent. It is a discarded idea, a creative dead end left to molder in a forgotten fold of reality. This is the attic of Olympus, the space between the walls where forgotten things and unrealized concepts collect. Finally, you see it, the shrine. A simple, elegant pedestal of white marble on a lonely peak. But there is a final trick. The shrine is on an island of rock, separated from you by a chasm of swirling purple mist. There is no bridge. You look at the map again. It shows no chasm. Hermes is not just testing your ability to navigate space. He is testing your faith in the errand itself. The pouch in your hand suddenly feels warm. Realize the task is not to deliver the pouch to the shrine, but to deliver it across the chasm. It is a test of commitment. You take a breath, and with a surge of desperate hope, you throw the small pouch with all your might. It sails through the air, and just as it seems it will fall short into the mist, a sudden, mischievous gust of wind, a familiar presence, catches it and lifts it gently, depositing it perfectly on the center of the pedestal. The moment it lands, the chasm vanishes. A solid stone path now connects you to the shrine. The errand is complete. But the question that remained was, if space and reality can be bent so easily by the whims of a single god, what hope does a mortal have of ever finding a straight path to freedom? Your successful navigation of Hermes' paradoxical errand earns you a brief period of unremarkable duties. You are returned to the kitchens, a place of comforting, tangible reality after the mind-bending geography of the mountain's hidden layers. Here you slice ambrosial fruits that bleed golden light and listen to the low-level grumbling of satyrs. It is in this mundane environment that you finally uncover one of the most foundational secrets of Olympus. Not through a dramatic revelation, but through a quiet, almost accidental observation. The kitchens are a marvel of divine logistics. The pantries are always full, the supplies infinite. Crates of pomegranates from some sun-drenched eternal orchard appear in empty storerooms. Amphorae of nectar, cool to the touch, replenish themselves on the racks. But the ambrosia, the food of the gods itself, is different. It is not delivered or stored. It is prepared daily, in a secluded chamber at the very heart of the kitchens, a place guarded by two silent, impassive telkines, ancient sea demons, with the heads of dogs and the hands of master craftsmen. One day, you are tasked with cleaning the antechamber to this sacred pantry. Through the shimmering, heat-hazed doorway, you catch glimpses of the process. You see a large, flat stone basin, not of marble or granite, but of a strange, porous, bone-white material. Into this basin, nymphs pour a variety of ingredients. Honey from bees that have fed on the dreams of sleeping mortals. Crushed pearls that dissolve into a milky effervescence. The dew collected from the petals of asphodel flowers that grow on the Elysian fields. It is a recipe of pure poetic beauty. But there is one final ingredient, one that you are clearly not meant to see. A heavily veiled nymph, her rank far above the others, approaches the basin. She carries a small, ornate silver box. With great reverence, she opens it and shakes a fine grayish powder into the mixture. The moment the powder hits the shimmering liquid, the ambrosia flares with a brilliant white light, and a wave of profound, blissful apathy washes out from the chamber. You feel it even in the antechamber, a sudden, serene sense of detachment. All your worries, your fears, your memories of the mortal world simply cease to matter. The feeling is intoxicating, and it is gone as quickly as it came, leaving you feeling hollowed and cold. You know, with a sickening certainty, that this gray powder is the true secret, the active ingredient. Later, you find Lyros tending to a small, hidden rooftop garden where he grows strangely shaped vegetables for his own consumption. You describe what you saw, what you felt. His face, usually a mask of weary cynicism, darkens. The stone in his eye seems to swirl with a deeper, more turbulent light. "So, you saw it?" he murmurs, crumbling a piece of dry earth between his fingers. The dust of indifference. He explains that ambrosia and nectar do not grant immortality. The gods are inherently immortal. Their divine food does something far more important. It sustains their detachment. The powder, he whispers, is collected from a single, unique source. The banks of the river Acheron in the underworld, the river of woe. But it is not just sand or silt. It is the crystallized, metaphysical residue of mortal sorrow, pain, and loss that flows into the river. For millennia, the forgotten griefs of humanity have settled on its banks, calcifying into this fine gray dust. The gods consume it daily in their perfect food. It works like an inoculation. By ingesting microscopic, concentrated doses of mortal suffering, they become immune to its effects. It allows them to witness plagues, wars, and famines, not with empathy, but with the detached interest of a spectator watching a play. Their compassion has not been lost. It has been systematically, chemically, and deliberately suppressed. A bizarre, grotesque detail of this process strikes you. Lyros mentions that the silver box used by the veiled nymph is a pyxis, type of small, decorated container that mortal Greek women used to hold cosmetics, trinkets, or medicines. The gods use a cosmetic box to carry the antidote to empathy. It is the perfect, insulting metaphor. They treat the world's sorrow as a minor inconvenience to be managed, a blemish to be covered. This revelation recontextualizes everything. Zeus's paranoia is not just about power. It is the fear of an addict terrified of his supply running out. Hera's jealousy is not just personal, it is the insulated rage of a being who cannot comprehend the genuine, messy emotions of the nymphs she punishes. Aphrodite's manufactured passions are so potent because they are deployed in a world she has been chemically buffered from understanding. They are not cruel because they are evil. They are cruel because they are numb. Their entire civilization, their glittering, perfect existence, is built upon a foundation of processed mortal pain. They are not just rulers, they're parasites, feeding on the very emotions they profess to be above. But the question that remained was, what happens to a god if they miss a dose? What would a being of immense power, suddenly flooded with millennia of suppressed empathy, be capable of? The knowledge of what sustains the gods sits like a stone in your stomach. The beauty of Olympus now seems grotesque, its golden light a garish mask, hiding a core of cold, calculated apathy. You perform your duties in a haze of quiet horror. The secret festers, making you jumpy, paranoid. You imagine the other servants can see the knowledge in your eyes, that Lyros's lapis eye can perceive the truth staining your very soul. Your anxiety, it turns out, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your distraction leads to a mistake. A small, simple, and potentially fatal mistake. You are in Hera's aviary, a vast, domed structure, where the air is thick with the cooing of doves and the shimmering, iridescent plumage of her sacred peacocks. Your task is to clean and refill the ornate water basins. The peacocks, symbols of the goddess's all-seeing nature, strut and display their magnificent tails. Their cries like the sound of a mocking laugh. They are arrogant, beautiful, and unnerving creatures, their feathers adorned with 100 unblinking eyes. As you work, your mind drifts. You think of the gray dust from the river Acheron, of Cres's silent madness, of Ares's calculating gaze. In a moment of carelessness, while shooing away a particularly bold peacock, you fail to notice one of its shed tail feathers lying on the marble floor. Your sandal-clad foot comes down on the delicate shaft, snapping it with a faint, crisp crack. The sound is insignificant, lost in the noise of the aviary, but it is a sound that seals your fate. Moments later, one of Hera's chief attendants, a severe-looking nymph with eyes as hard as pebbles, arrives for a routine inspection. Her gaze sweeps the room and immediately falls upon the broken feather. She does not speak to you. She doesn't even look at you. She simply picks up the two pieces of the feather, her expression one of cold, theatrical dismay, and leaves. You know what is coming? It is not about a broken feather. It is about the principle. It is about the opportunity to make an example. Remember Hera's silent punishment of the nymph? This is the bureaucratic version of that cruelty. Within the hour, you are summoned, not to Hera's throne, but to a small, windowless chamber you have never seen before. It is stark and bare, furnished only with a single high-backed stone chair and a heavy wooden table. This, you learn, is the domain of Nomos, the personification of law and order. But on Olympus, Nomos is not a blindfolded goddess holding scales. It is a suffocating, faceless bureaucracy, a system of rules so ancient and convoluted that they serve not justice, but the perpetuation of power. A minor deity you don't recognize, a godling with watery eyes and ink-stained fingers who seems to be the divine equivalent of a clerk, presides. He unrolls a scroll that seems impossibly long. He reads the charge in a droning, monotonous voice, the desecration of a sacred artifact, specifically one primary ocellus feather from a consecrated pavo cristatus of the Heraean. He speaks of precedents, of bylaws, of footnotes and divine edicts that date back to the war with the Titans. It is a slow, grinding process designed to strip away your will, to crush you under the sheer weight of meaningless procedure. There is no trial, no defense. Your guilt is assumed. The clerk explains the standard sentence for such an infraction, referencing a case from 3 millennia ago involving a satyr who accidentally sat on a sacred pomegranate. The punishment is not death, is repurposing. You will be taken to the forges, where Hephaestus will break you down into your constituent parts, your sorrow, your fear, your memories, and forge you into a new, useful object. Perhaps a hinge for a door, or a buckle on a sandal. An eternity of silent, mindless utility. As the clerk drones on, you notice a bizarre, unsettling detail. The scroll from which he reads is not made of papyrus. It is a sheet of thinly hammered, beaten skin, and the ink is not ink at all. It is a dark, dried substance that flakes as he rolls and unrolls the scroll. You realize with a surge of nausea that you are listening to your fate being read from a legal text written on the flayed skin of a previously repurposed being. The law is literally written on the bodies of its past victims. Panic, cold and sharp, finally cuts through the numbing despair. Your life, your consciousness, is about to be extinguished and turned into an object. The injustice is so profound, so absolute, that it clarifies your mind. You have seen too much, learned too much, to end as a footnote on a grotesque scroll. For the first time since arriving on Olympus, the instinct for pure survival overwhelms the terror. But the question that remained was, in a system where the laws are designed to guarantee your destruction, how do you escape a fate that is already written? The droning voice of the ink-stained clerk is a physical force, pressing you down into a state of resigned terror. The words repurposing and constituent parts echo in the small, dead-air chamber. Your survival instinct is a tiny, frantic bird beating against the cage of your paralysis. This is it, the end of you. A quiet cough breaks the monotone. It's a small, human sound, utterly out of place, yet it cuts through the bureaucratic haze like a thrown knife. The clerk stops, his mouth open mid-syllable. Lyros is standing in the doorway, his stooped form framed by the dim light of the corridor. He looks even older, more tired than usual. Shuffles into the room, his gaze not on you, but on the clerk. He bows his head slightly, a gesture of respect that is somehow also deeply dismissive. "Apologies for the interruption, Administrator," he says, his voice a dry rustle. "I was merely confirming the invocation of the Titanomachy Clause subsection epsilon regarding this unit." The clerk blinks, his watery eyes narrowing. "The Titanomachy Clause that has not been relevant for eons? It pertains to strategic assets." "Precisely," Lyros says, his tone unnervingly calm. "The subsection concerning the quarantine of cross-contaminated informational assets? A servant who has, through the course of their duties, been directly exposed to the conflicting strategic intentions of 3 or more primary Olympians cannot be decommissioned." He ticks points off on his gnarled fingers. "This unit has been a vessel for a keyword from the Queen, subject of the King's Aegis field, an object of appraisal by the god of war, and a subject of psychic transcription by the god of truth. Its constituent parts are currently imprinted with a volatile and contradictory blend of divine residue. To repurpose it now," Lyros finishes, with a hint of something sharp in his tone, "would be to risk creating an object of profound instability. A buckle that whispers secrets, a hinge that hums with paranoia. The law is quite clear. The asset must be isolated until the residue fades to a neutral state." The clerk is speechless. Ace frantically scrolls through his grotesque parchment, searching for a rebuttal. Lyros has not challenged the system. He has used its own absurd, ancient weight to defeat it. The clerk, a being of pure regulation, is trapped. He sputters, rolls up his scroll with a frustrated crackle, and gestures dismissively. "Very well. The unit is remanded to your supervision for neutralization. File the appropriate forms." Lyros bows again, a flicker of triumph in his one human eye, and gestures for you to follow. You stumble out of the chamber, your legs trembling, back into the land of the living. Leads you not to the servant quarters, but back to his hidden rooftop garden. He pushes a misshapen purple root into your hand. "Eat, it will ground you. The taste is earthy and bitter." As you chew, the lingering psychic chill of the judgment chamber begins to recede. Lyros watches you, his expression unreadable. "Did you pray?" he asks, his voice soft. You shake your head, confused. "When they came for you, did you pray to any of them for help?" You say no, that you were too terrified to think. A wave of genuine relief washes over his features. "Good," he breathes. "That is why you are still here. You have learned all the minor rules of survival. Out. You will learn the most important one. It's the only one that truly matters. Never pray to the gods you serve," he explains. Down there, he gestures vaguely towards the mortal world. Prayer is a whisper on the wind, a hope cast into the void. It's diluted by distance, by millions of other voices. Up here, a prayer is a direct, focused, psychic scream. You think you are asking for salvation? What they hear is an insect buzzing directly in their ear. He picks up a clod of dirt, crumbling it. "Remember the ambrosia? The dust of indifference? They are numb, insulated. Your raw, desperate, mortal hope pierces that numbness. It's not inspiring. It's irritating. It's a dissonant note in their perfect, quiet symphony. Their reaction is not compassion. It is annoyance. And their response to annoyance is to swat the source." He touches the lapis lazuli stone in his eye socket. "I told you this was a gift from Hermes. It was a lie. It was his attempt to fix what I broke. He tells you that long ago. When he was new here, a minor goddess of the dew showed him a small kindness. He was overwhelmed with gratitude. He offered up a silent, heartfelt prayer of thanks directly to her. She was not a cruel being," Lyros says, his voice distant. "But she was startled by the sudden pure blast of my emotion. She flinched. A reflexive, divine flinch, in my eye. It just ceased to exist." He explains the mortal tradition of votive offerings, leaving small clay figures or plaques at a shrine. Mortals think they are leaving an object. They are wrong. When you pray, the prayer itself is the offering, and the thing you are offering up for their notice is you. You are placing your existence on their altar and begging them to look. And here, To be truly seen is to be erased. You stare at him, the full horror of his words sinking in. The last refuge of the desperate, the final act of the hopeless, is the most efficient form of suicide on Olympus. But the question that remained was, if hope is a weapon turned against yourself, and prayer is a plea for your own annihilation, what is left to cling to in the gilded darkness? The lesson from Leros, that hope is a liability, settles into you, a cold and heavy truth. Your reprieve under his supervision means you are given the most undesirable, most ignored tasks, which suits you perfectly. We're sent to the lowest levels of Olympus, to the vast, echoing cellars where discarded artifacts and forgotten offerings are left to gather dust. It is a mausoleum of mortal belief, filled with tarnished tripods, faded tapestries depicting forgotten heroes, and countless clay votives, each one a monument to a prayer that went unanswered. The air is stale, thick with the scent of decay, physical decay, but the decay of memory. Here, in the quiet gloom, the servants' gossip network is at its most potent. Far from the ears of the gods, the whispers are bolder. You work alongside a handful of other outcasts and old-timers, beings who have survived by making themselves forgotten. A wizened satyr with a broken horn, a quiet nymph who seems to be made of river silt, and a few other mortals like yourself, their faces etched with the same weary caution. It is here that you learn the truth of the underworld. The servants speak of Hades not as a villain, but as a grim, efficient administrator. They talk about the chthonic gods with a kind of grudging respect. It's completely different from the fearful awe reserved for the Olympians. They are dangerous, yes, but predictable. They have rules. They are stable. The central topic of their whispered conversations is not the terror of Tartarus or the bliss of Elysium, but the relationship between Hades and Persephone, the mortal story, the one you grew up with. It's a tragedy. The beautiful maiden of spring, daughter of the grain goddess Demeter, violently abducted by the grim lord of the dead. Her mother's grief brings winter to the world, and a deal is struck, forcing her to return to the underworld for half the year. It is a story of violation and sorrow. The servants of Olympus know a different version. The version of the Olympians, particularly Zeus and Demeter, want buried. An old servant, a man who claims he used to polish Zeus's lightning bolts before he dropped one, tells the story in a hushed, conspiratorial voice. He says Persephone was not just a naive girl picking flowers. She was a powerful goddess in her own right, her domain not just spring, but the latent power of the earth itself, the seeds sleeping in the dark soil, the minerals in the rock, the geothermal heat. She was drawn to the underworld, not stolen away to it. The Eleusinian mysteries, he scoffs, the famous secret rites held in Demeter's honor, were a piece of brilliant propaganda. They focused on the cycle of loss and return, cementing Demeter's version of events in the mortal mind for centuries. The true mystery, he whispers, was that Persephone chose her fate. Hades did not abduct a helpless maiden. He courted a power equal to his own. Her capture was a prearranged elopement, a secret alliance between the lord of the mineral kingdom below and the goddess of latent life above. Zeus had promised Persephone to others, to Apollo, to Ares, treating her as a political pawn to forge alliances on Olympus. She and Hades circumvented him entirely, creating their own power base. A third pole in the cosmic order, independent of the squabbling, sky-dwelling Olympians. The pomegranate seeds were not a trick. They were a contract. By willingly partaking of the food of the underworld, she formalized her position, not as a prisoner, but as a queen. Her return to the surface each year is not a sorrowful reunion with her mother. It is a strategic political visit, a reassertion of her influence in both realms. Demeter's grief was real, but it was the grief of a mother who had been outmaneuvered by her own daughter, her authority challenged. Zeus's rage was not for his daughter's safety, but for the disruption of his neat political plans. As you listen, you notice a bizarre, mundane detail about the cellar you're in. The discarded votive offerings, thousands of tiny clay legs, arms, and ears, left by mortals seeking healing, are not just piled up. They are arranged in neat, obsessive rows by some forgotten servant, sorted by body part, a wall of ears, pile of hands. It is a grotesque, orderly monument to mortal pain. It perfectly mirrors the story you are hearing, the Olympians. obsession with controlling and categorizing every aspect of existence, while the real power plays happen in the realms they can't or won't understand. The story fundamentally reframes the cosmic order. The universe is not a simple dichotomy of Olympian light and chthonic darkness. It is a complex political landscape of three competing powers: the vain, emotionally volatile sky gods, the grim, orderly death gods, and the silent, cyclical earth powers. Olympus is not the center of everything, it's just the loudest part. The truth of Hades and Persephone is not a secret the Olympians keep out of shame, they keep it out of fear. It proves that their authority can be defied, their power can be circumvented, and that love, or at least, lions can blossom in the darkness, far from their golden, blinding light. But the question that remained was, if even the gods can have their most foundational stories rewritten by politics and power, what does that make the truths that govern mortal lives? Your period of exile in the dusty cellars comes to an abrupt end. A summons arrives, not by a whisper or a nymph, but delivered by a grinning satyr reeking of fermented honey. There is to be a celebration, a revel. Dionysus has returned to Olympus from one of his long sojourns in the mortal world, and a festival is being held in his honor. You are not to serve at the main banquet, a task reserved for the elite. Nectar pourers but are assigned to the outer circles of the revelry, dispensing the lesser wines to the vast assembly of minor deities, nymphs, satyrs, and other servitors. The atmosphere is electric, a stark contrast to the usual tense order of the mountain. The golden light of the halls seems warmer, softer. The air, usually still, is alive with music, not the analytical precision of Apollo's lyre, but the wild, chaotic rhythm of drums and pipes, laughter loud and uninhibited, echoes where there is usually only reverent silence. It is a forced, almost frantic gaiety, as if the inhabitants of Olympus are desperate to forget the crushing weight of their own perfection for a single night. You are given a wineskin and a simple wooden cup and stationed near a grotto where the music is loudest. The wine you serve is not the divine nectar. It is a mortal vintage, albeit one of exceptional quality, infused with just a hint of ambrosia to give it an otherworldly kick. But even this diluted version is potent. As the revelry deepens, the very air seems to become intoxicated. Nymphs who are usually models of decorum dance with wild abandon, their hair coming unbound. Satyrs, their base natures given full license, caper and howl. It is a carefully sanctioned chaos, a release valve for the pressures of Olympian life. As you perform your duty, your cup constantly being refilled from enormous, ever-full barrels, a presence looms beside you. It is Dionysus himself. He is not the soft, effeminate boy of some statues, nor the hardy, bearded man of others. He is both and neither. His form seems to shift, his features fluid, his age indeterminate. One moment he looks like a lithe youth with eyes full of mischief. The next, a world-weary ancient with the sorrow of 1,000 tragedies in his gaze. His eyes are the color of dark wine, and they hold a dangerous, unnerving spark of pure madness. He smiles at you, a smile that is both inviting and deeply predatory. You are not partaking, he observes, his voice a smooth, melodious baritone that seems to vibrate in your chest. A servant's duty is to serve, but a reveler's duty is to revel. Before you can protest, he takes the wooden cup from your hand, dips it into a small personal wineskin he carries, one made of gleaming, iridescent panther skin, and hands it back to you. Drink, a taste of the true vintage. Gift. Refusal is not an option. His eyes demand compliance. The wine in the cup is dark, almost black, and it does not shimmer. It seems to absorb the light around it. The smell is not of grapes, but of damp earth, crushed ivy, and something wild and musky, like the scent of a predator. You remember the stories of the Maenads, his mortal female followers, who in their ecstatic frenzy would tear wild animals and sometimes men apart with their bare hands. You are holding the source of that frenzy in your hands. You raise the cup to your lips, your hand trembling, and take a single, small sip. The world explodes. It is not drunkenness. It is dissolution. The boundaries of your own consciousness dissolve. The separation between you and everything else vanishes. You are the music, the frenetic pounding drums. You are the light, the swirling torchlight that paints mad patterns on the grotto walls. You are the wild laughter of the satyrs and the desperate ecstasy of the nymphs. You feel the cool stone under your feet and the hot breath of the dancer beside you, not as external sensations, but as parts of your own being. You experience 1,000 lives in a single second. This is the divine madness, the ecstasy, the state of being outside oneself. It is a glimpse into the raw, unfiltered chaos of creation, the state of the universe before logic and order were imposed. It is terrifying, and it is utterly, indescribably beautiful. You understand in that moment that Dionysus is not the god of wine. He is the god of the dissolution of identity, the deity of the primal, untamed life force that civilization tries to pave over. A bizarre, almost academic thought flashes through your fractured consciousness. You recall that some mortal philosophers debated whether he was a true Olympian or a late addition, a foreign god from Thrace or Lydia. The debate is meaningless. He is the wild, chaotic world that Olympus desperately tries to keep outside its gleaming gates, invited in for one night. The vision fades as quickly as it came, the sip of wine burning through your system like a flash fire. Hush. You are left gasping, clutching the wooden cup, the world slowly reassembling itself into familiar shapes. The music is just music again. The dancers are just dancers. You are just you. But something is broken.
Oh.
The neat, solid lines of reality now seem fragile, illusory. Dionysus chuckles, a low, knowing sound. Now you know, he says. What it is, they are all so afraid of. He turns and melts back into the crowd. A ripple in the fabric of the chaos he commands. But the question that remained was, after tasting the terrifying freedom of true chaos, how can you ever again be content within the prison of a single, ordered self? The echoes of Dionysus's madness fade slowly, leaving you feeling frayed as if the edges of your soul have been unraveled and poorly stitched back together. The world seems thin, a stage set that could collapse at any moment. You are reassigned, pulled from the chaotic aftermath of the revels, and sent to a place of quiet. Intense focus, the weaving rooms of Athena. The change is jarring, from the wild drums of Dionysus to a silence broken only by the rhythmic clatter of looms and the soft whisper of shuttles. The weaving rooms are not grand or opulent. They are practical, well-lit spaces filled with enormous looms. The air smells of clean wool, sizing, and the faint, sharp scent of ozone that seems to cling to Athena's presence. Here, nymphs and a few chosen mortal women work with a concentration that is absolute. They are not creating decorative tapestries or beautiful fabrics for gowns. They are weaving records, histories, fates. You are put to work sorting threads, a task that requires meticulous attention. The threads are stored not on spools, but in glowing, ethereal globes that hover in the air, each containing a single, infinitely long strand of a specific color and texture. There are threads that feel like courage, rough and warm. Threads that feel like despair, cold and brittle. Threads of ambition that shimmer with a greasy rainbow sheen. Your job is to organize them by hue and intensity, a lesson in the emotional spectrum of existence. As you work, you cannot help but watch the weavers. In the center of the main room, Athena herself works at the largest loom. She is not the armor-clad warrior goddess. Here she is the artisan, the strategist of the long game. Her gray eyes, which miss nothing, are fixed on the complex pattern emerging on her loom. She moves with an economy and precision that is mesmerizing, her long fingers flying, the shuttle a blur of motion. She is not merely weaving a picture. She is codifying a narrative, setting an event in the stone of history. Your attention is drawn to a smaller loom in the corner, where a young woman with fierce, proud eyes is working. You recognize her face from legends. It is Arachne, the mortal weaver from Lydia, who boasted that her skill was greater than Athena's. In the mortal tale, her hubris leads to a contest, her defeat, and her transformation into a spider. But as with all Olympian stories, the reality is more complex, more cruel. Arachne is here, on Olympus, forever weaving. She was not turned into a spider. Her punishment was to be given a place in Athena's workshop, to spend eternity weaving perfect tapestries that no one will ever see, her skill acknowledged, but her fame denied. It is a prison of artistry, a gilded cage of her own talent. You watch Athena, and you see the tapestry she is working on. It is a battle scene, vivid and chaotic. You see bronze armor, flashing swords, and the faces of men contorted in agony and effort. You recognize the high walls of a great city. It is Troy, but the scene is not from the famous parts of the war. It depicts a lesser-known brutal skirmish on the beachhead. Your eyes follow a single, prominent thread, a thick, vibrant strand of heroic gold that represents one of the fighters. You see the thread trace the man's path through the battle, a dance of victory and valor. He is a minor Greek hero, one you vaguely remember from the epic poems, a man destined for glory and a long life. Then you see Athena pause. Her expression does not change. There is no malice, no anger, no sadness. There is only a cool, detached assessment, like a master artisan inspecting her work for a flaw. She takes up a small, sharp pair of obsidian shears. With a single clinical snip, she cuts the golden thread. On the tapestry, the figure of the hero is instantly stilled. His thread ends abruptly, mid-motion, surrounded by the chaos of the battle. He did not die from a wound. He was not defeated by a mightier foe. His narrative simply stopped. Athena snipped him from the story. It is a chilling, profound revelation. The fates, the moiae, are said to spin, measure, and cut the thread of life. But Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategy, is the editor. She does not determine the length of the thread, but she can choose where to cut it within the grand tapestry of her strategic designs. This hero's death was not fated. It was a strategic decision. Perhaps his continued existence would have complicated a political outcome. Perhaps his glory would have overshadowed a more favored hero. The reason is irrelevant. He was a loose thread in her grand design, and she tidied it up. Bizarre detail on her loom catches your eye. Woven into the very frame of the loom itself are strands of what look like human hair, braided together with sinew and silver wire. They are trophies, you realize, mementos from past weavers who challenged her like Arachne. The loom is not just a tool, it is a monument to her intellectual dominance. Athena glances up, her gray eyes meeting yours across the room. There is no surprise in her gaze. She knows you saw. She knows you understand. She has not revealed a secret. She has delivered a lesson. Power is not just about strength. It is about controlling the narrative. And she is the ultimate author. But the question that remained was, if your life is just a thread in a goddess's tapestry, do you struggle against the weave, or do you pray that your color fits her design? The image of Athena's obsidian shears snipping the golden thread of a hero's life is seared into your mind. You are a thread. Your entire existence is a fragile strand in a tapestry you cannot see. This thought follows you as you go about your duties, a constant chilling whisper at the back of your consciousness. You move through the grand halls of Olympus, no longer just an observer but a collector of loose threads, your mind subconsciously trying to see the pattern they form. The fragments you have gathered here's whisper, Zeus's paranoia, Ares's calculations whirl in your memory, pieces of a puzzle you are terrified to solve. Your duties, supervised by Lyros, keep you in the periphery, which is both a blessing and a curse. You are out of the direct line of sight of the major gods, but you are perfectly positioned to overhear the whispers of their underlings. One cycle, while delivering a fresh supply of olive oil to a chamber near Hera's private wing, you overhear two of her handmaidens. They speak in hushed, urgent tones, believing they are alone. The mistress is patient, one says. She reminded the silver bow of the debt from Alice. A daughter's life for a fair wind. Price was paid. A favor is owed. The other nymph shivers. To call in that debt now, the timing is precise. The name Aulis clicks in your mind. It was the port where the Greek fleet stalled on their way to Troy, where Agamemnon of Mycenae sacrificed his own daughter, Iphigenia, to appease Artemis and gain favorable winds. The connection flashes, bright and terrible. McKean,
Ars.
whispered to you wasn't just a place. It was a reminder of this debt, a piece of leverage she holds over Artemis. Days later, you are cleaning a fountain in a courtyard frequented by Apollo's acolytes. The junior seers and oracles in training, they are discussing a prophecy, not from Delphi, but from a lesser-known Sibyl. Their voices are academic, detached, but the subject matter is chilling. The pronouncement was clear, one says. The crown of the sky is unmade, not by the stone below, but by the face it beholds. His companion nods. It's a ruler undone by his own reflection. Most assume it refers to a mortal king's hubris. But the syntax was archaic. It's a Titaniera grammar. They move on, debating the finer points of prophetic interpretation. But the phrase hangs in the air, undone by his own reflection. You remember the story of Zeus's father, Cronus, who devoured his children out of fear of being overthrown, a fear that ultimately caused his downfall.
Oh.
You remember the Aegis field, the palpable broadcast of Zeus's own inherited paranoia? He is terrified of becoming his father. He is being haunted by his own reflection in the past. The final piece falls into place in the one place you feel a sliver of safety, Lerose's rooftop garden. As you are weeding a patch of strange, star-shaped herbs, you see two of Ares' attendants, minor spirits of battle lust, lurking near the edge of the roof, looking down on the main courtyard. They are meant to be guarding something, but they are bored, gossiping. The master is sharpening the old blades. One grunts. The ones that tasted Titan ichor, the other snorts. He says the pact of the three brothers is brittle, that the sea is stirring against the sky. He says a storm is coming that has nothing to do with weather. A brittle pact, the sea stirring against the sky. Poseidon against Zeus. The foundational alliance that holds the cosmos in order is fracturing. You retreat to a hidden corner, your heart hammering against your ribs. You clutch a small, smooth stone you found among Lyros's things, a dull gray rock that seems to warm in your hand. Lyros once called it a Mnemosyne stone, an aid for tired minds, claiming it didn't grant memories, but simply helped organize the ones you already have. You hold it tight and the pieces snap together with a terrifying crystalline clarity. Hera has leverage over Artemis. A prophecy foretells Zeus's downfall, mirroring his own father's fate. The alliance between the three ruling brothers is breaking. This isn't about a Titan uprising. The threat is not external. It is a coup. Celestial civil war orchestrated from within. Hera is not making a play for the throne herself. She is dismantling Zeus's power base, isolating him, using his own paranoia against him, and preparing to shatter the status quo. The prophecy is not about the fall of a forgotten power. It foretells the fall of an Olympian. You, a nameless servant, have stumbled upon the single most dangerous secret in creation. But the question that remained was, when you hold a truth that could shatter the heavens, does the silence protect you, or does it become your tomb? The secret is a physical sickness. It churns in your gut, a knot of cold dread that no amount of menial labor can distract you from. You have pieced together the coming apocalypse, and the knowledge isolates you completely. You avoid Lyros, fearing his lapis eye might see the shape of the treason in your mind. You keep to the shadows, performing your tasks with a frantic, desperate focus on normalcy. You are a ghost haunted by a future only you can see. Your duties take you back to the weaving rooms of Athena, a place you now dread more than any other. The rhythmic clatter of the looms feels like the ticking of a cosmic clock, counting down to ruin. You are assigned to inventorying the finished tapestries, rolling them carefully and affixing tags of ivory that describe their subject matter. It is a task that requires you to look closely at Athena's work. At the frozen moments of history she is deemed complete. You unroll a tapestry depicting the founding of a city, another shows a philosopher receiving divine inspiration. Each is a masterpiece of order, a celebration of wisdom and civilization triumphing over chaos. It feels like a deliberate lesson, a reminder of the world you are complicit in shattering. You're working in a quiet alcove. You're back to the main room when the looms fall silent. All of them at once. The sudden absolute quiet is more deafening than the noise it replaced. The air grows still and heavy, pregnant with a formidable intelligence. You don't need to turn around. You feel her presence like a change in atmospheric pressure. Athena is standing behind you. You have become a collector of threads, she says. Her voice is not accusatory. It is a simple statement of fact, calm and measured. Tell me, servant. In a tapestry as complex as this world, which is the most dangerous thread? The one that is brightly colored and draws the eye, or the one that is dull and seems to hold the entire weave together? Your blood runs cold. You turn slowly, your heart a frantic drum. She is standing there, her gray eyes fixed on you, her expression unreadable. On her shoulder sits her owl, Glaucopus, its feathers the color of twilight. Its eyes are not the warm, living eyes of a bird. They are like two discs of polished, dark silver, and they do not reflect the room. They seem to hold their own internal shifting light. You stammer a reply, something about the strength of the foundational threads being most important. Your answer is weak, evasive. She listens with a polite, unnerving stillness. An adequate answer for a weaver, she says. But you are not a weaver. You are a witness. She takes a step closer, and the owl on her shoulder ruffles its feathers. You have seen the pattern. The bright, angry thread of a jealous queen. The dark, fraying thread of a paranoid king. The blood-red thread of a warrior spoiling for a fight. You have seen how they pull and twist, threatening to unravel the entire design. She isn't questioning you. She is telling you what you know. Each phrase is a clinical confirmation of your deepest fears. As she speaks, the owl's silver eyes flicker. For a fraction of a second, you see an image in them, a flash of peacock feathers, then the reflection of a crown in a polished floor, then the glint of a bronze-tipped spear. Athena gestures to a massive tapestry being worked on by 3 of her most skilled attendants. It depicts a grand procession of citizens carrying a magnificent saffron-dyed robe, the peplos, towards a temple. The Panathenea, she says, a celebration of order. A community weaving itself together in devotion to a shared ideal. That is the design. That is the goal. Stability. Civilization. She turns her gaze back to you, and it is as sharp and piercing as a needle. The pattern you have uncovered is the opposite of this. It is chaos. A petty, familial squabble scaled up to the level of cosmic consequence. It is ... inefficient, poorly designed. Her dismissal of the impending celestial war as a mere strategic flaw is more terrifying than any threat. She is not angry. She is not afraid. She is intellectually offended by the sloppiness of it all. She walks over to a table and picks up a small, intricately carved box. She opens it, revealing not threads, but a collection of small, polished stones, each engraved with a single, complex symbol. These are tactical markers, she explains, her voice taking on the quality of a lecturer. This one represents a broken alliance. This one, a compromised asset. This one, she holds up a stone that seems to drink the light, represents an unforeseen variable. A piece that does not belong on the board, but sees the whole game. She places the stone down and looks at you. You're the unforeseen variable. She knows everything. She has not silenced you. She has not erased you. The realization is a new kind of terror. You are no longer just a servant who knows too much, or a piece in her own, far more complex game. She is not taking a side in the conflict. She is analyzing it from above, and you have become her most interesting data point. But the question that remained was, when the goddess of wisdom knows your secret and does not silence you, is she offering you protection, or is she simply sharpening you into a weapon for her own use? You leave Athena's presence feeling not relief, but a new, more profound level of terror. To be a secret is one thing. To be a known variable in a goddess's cosmic game of strategy is another entirely. You are no longer just a witness. You are a sentient chess piece, aware of the board, but utterly powerless to refuse the coming moves. The very air of Olympus seems to hold its breath around you. Every shadow seems to watch. Every whisper of wind feels like an assessment. It is in this state of heightened, nerve-shredding awareness that the summons comes. Not one, but two. It happens in a deserted corridor of polished, cloud-white marble. A single, pure ray of sunlight lances through a high window, striking the floor before you and coalescing into the shimmering, heat-hazed form of one of Apollo's messengers. Simultaneously, a sliver of shadow in the far corner deepens. Gathering substance, and a silent silver-eyed hunter of Artemis steps out of the gloom. They are perfect mirror images of opposition. One of golden light and resonant sound, the other of silver shadow and absolute silence. They speak at the same time, their voices one a clear, musical note. The other, a rustle of night leaves intertwining into a single, discordant command. You are needed. In the twilight grove, then, as one, they dissolve, leaving you alone in the suddenly oppressive silence. The twilight grove is a place you have never been, liminal space on the mountain's edge where the domains of the divine twins bleed into one another. Here, the light is neither day nor night, but a constant pearlescent state between dusk and dawn. The trees have bark of silver and leaves of pale gold. It is a place of beautiful, unsettling contradiction. The twins are waiting for you. They stand on opposite sides of a small clearing, a picture of divine opposition. Apollo radiant and golden, his presence a warm harmonic hum. Artemis, cool and silvered, her stillness the predatory quiet of the deep woods. Between them on the mossy ground lies a magnificent creature, a great stag, larger than any you have ever seen. Its antlers are not bone, but polished, living gold that seems to catch and hold the grove's ethereal light. It is wounded. A deep gash runs along its flank, but it is the nature of the wound that makes you recoil. It is not bleeding blood. It is weeping a thick, viscous fluid that glows with a sickly, pulsating light, like molten gold. The grass around the wound is blackened and crisped, as if burned by this luminous ichor. The stag's labored breaths are shallow, its dark eyes wide with a pain that is both physical and deeply unnatural. Artemis speaks first, her voice as cold and clear as winter air. This creature of the wild has been afflicted. I brought it here to my brother's attention. He wishes to interfere. I do not. Her gaze is imperious, absolute. You will not touch it. You will guard it and let the laws of the wild run their course. If it is strong enough to heal, it will live. If it is weak, its body will feed my wolves, and its energy will return to the soil. This is the truth of the cycle. To meddle is to introduce a lie into this sacred place. As she finishes, she fades into the trees, a whisper of movement, leaving the scent of cold night air in her wake. Apollo then steps forward, his warmth a stark contrast to his sister's chill. His eyes, usually so clear and bright, are troubled. My sister sees only the cycle. I see the flaw. The discord, he says, his voice a resonant chord of pained sympathy.
Ow.
This wound is an abomination, a sliver of chaos, a pocket of disease that corrupts its perfect form. The light it bleeds is a twisted mockery of my own essence. He looks at you, his command unequivocal. You will tend to it. You will use the poultices I have left for you. You will cleanse the wound and seal it. You will restore its harmony. To let it suffer and decay is to allow ugliness to triumph. That is an outcome I will not permit. And with that, he too vanishes, leaving a lingering warmth in the scent of sun-baked laurel. You are left alone with the dying stag and the two contradictory absolute commands. This is not an errand. This is an oath of allegiance. Not. To obey Artemis is to align yourself with the wild primal forces Hera is leveraging. To obey Apollo is to side with the established order, with the very system of perfection that you know is built on a foundation of lies and apathy. You remember the legend of the Cyrenian hind, the golden-horned deer sacred to Artemis that Heracles was tasked to capture. The hero had to chase it for a year, a test of endurance to avoid harming the creature and incurring the goddess's wrath. His task was simple compared to yours. He had to be careful. You have to be a traitor. To choose one is to declare war on the other. This is it, the test Athena foresaw. You are the variable being measured. As you approach the suffering animal, the heat from its glowing wound washing over you, you know your choice will set your final path. But the question that remained was, when faced with an impossible choice, do you choose the side you fear less, or the side that offers the faintest glimmer of a path home? You stand frozen in the twilight grove, trapped between the hunter's law and the healer's command. The golden stag's pained breaths are a ticking clock, each one a count against your indecision. To follow Artemis is to embrace a brutal, honest nature that you find both terrifying and strangely pure. To follow Apollo is to uphold a lie of perfection, a harmony bought at the cost of truth. Your mind races, replaying every secret, every warning. Never pray to the gods you serve. Eros' voice echoes in your memory. Praying is an act of hope, and hope is a plea for annihilation. But this choice isn't about hope, it's about strategy. Betrayal is more survivable. Your eyes fall on the supplies Apollo left. A soft linen cloth, a bowl of clear, shimmering water, and a small jar of a green, fragrant balm. Then you look at the wound again, at the sickly, glowing ichor. It is a wound of chaos, as Apollo said. The only thing you have ever seen that counteracts divine power is the mundane, the mortal. An idea desperate and insane sparks in your mind. You will obey neither. You will obey both, and in doing so, betray them equally. You take the linen cloth. Ignoring Apollo's shimmering water, you find a small, muddy puddle at the edge of the grove. A place where the ethereal light doesn't quite reach, where simple, mortal rainwater has collected. You soak the cloth in the dirty water. Then you turn not to the stag, but to the surrounding woods. You gather what you can, a handful of common moss, a piece of rough tree bark, and a clump of dark, unremarkable soil. You mash them together in your palm, creating a crude, earthy poultice. This is not divine medicine. This is the folk remedy of a village healer, a practice as old as the earth itself. With your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs, you approach the great stag. It flinches, its golden antlers scraping against a low-hanging branch. You speak to it, your voice low and steady, a stream of meaningless, comforting sounds. You gently press the muddy cloth to the edge of the wound. The glowing ichor hisses, its light flickering violently where it touches the mortal grime. You then take your crude poultice and, with a deep breath, slap it directly onto the corrupted flesh. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the stag shudders violently. The golden light of the wound flares, a blinding, silent explosion of corrupt energy. A wave of force throws you backward onto the mossy ground. The grove is plunged into an echoing silence. When your vision clears, the stag is struggling to its feet. The wound is still there, but it is no longer weeping light. It is a clean, honest wound, bleeding a thin trickle of dark, normal blood. The chaos has been neutralized, purged by the simple, profound power of the mundane. The stag gives you one long, deep look with its dark, intelligent eyes, then turns, and vanishes into the deeper shadows of the grove, its movements no longer pained, but powerful. You are left kneeling in the silence, your hands covered in mud and blood. You have done the impossible. You have healed the wound without using Apollo's perfect remedy, and you have interfered, directly defying Artemis's command. You have chosen a third path, a mortal path. You have answered their divine dilemma with a solution born of dirt and desperation. In the sudden stillness, you notice a figure watching you from the edge of the clearing. It is not one of the twins. It is a minor deity, a small, wizened godling with skin like old parchment and eyes that seem to hold the light of fading stars. You recognize him from whispered stories in the servants' quarters. He is Kairos, the personification of opportune moments, of the single instant in which decisive action can change fate. He is a god of fleeting chances, often depicted as having a long lock of hair on his forehead and being bald on the back of his head, easy to grasp as he approaches. It's impossible to catch once he has passed. He simply watches you, a slow, ancient smile spreading across his wrinkled face. He gives a single, almost imperceptible nod, an acknowledgement of the moment you just seized. Then he is gone, like a thought you can't quite hold on to. The nod is a confirmation. Your insane gamble was the correct move. By choosing neither god, you pleased a much older, more subtle power. You have demonstrated that you are not a pawn to be moved by the Olympians, but a player in your own right, is capable of seeing the opportune moment. And as this realization dawns, another presence makes itself known. From the deepest shadows of the grove, a shape begins to fade into existence. Not a god, not a nymph, a mortal. It is Lyros. He is leaning against a tree, and for the first time, a genuine, unforced smile touches his lips. His lapis eye seems to swirl with pride. "I wondered if you would see it," he says, his voice no longer just a dry rustle, but filled with a strange warmth. The third option is always there. The mortal option. They never see it. They're too busy looking at their own reflections. But the question that remained was, now that you have proven you can think like a mortal and act with the decisiveness of a minor god, what unforeseen opportunities might now become available to you? Lyros leads you away from the twilight grove, his earlier weariness replaced by a new, focused energy. "You have learned to see the board," he says, his voice low. "Now you must learn what the pieces are made of." He guides you through passages you have never seen, not the grand corridors or the paradoxical shortcuts of Hermes, but simple, dusty service tunnels that smell of damp stone and ozone. He is taking you to a place the other gods have no reason to visit, a place of endings, You emerge onto a small, secluded terrace, overgrown with pale, moss-like flora. It overlooks a vast sea of clouds, but unlike the vibrant, sun-kissed vistas from the main halls, this view is gray and muted. The terrace is a pocket of melancholy stillness. Sitting on a simple stone bench, her back to you, is a figure. She is humming a tune, but the melody is fragmented, full of gaps, as if the notes themselves are crumbling into silence. As you draw closer, you see that she is partially transparent. You can see the gray clouds of the horizon through her shoulders and the back of the bench through her waist. She is a goddess, but one who is coming undone. This is Althea, Leros whispers. Once, she was the goddess of a single, remote valley in Arcadia. Her domain was the sound of the wind through a specific grove of ancient pine trees. The people of that valley prayed to her for gentle breezes and warnings of coming storms. As Lyro speaks, Althea turns her head. Her face is beautiful, but her features lack substance. Her eyes, the color of a winter sky, seem to struggle to focus on you. A faint, sad smile touches her lips, and then a section of her cheek becomes entirely invisible for a moment before flickering back into semi-existence. You watch in horrified fascination as a breeze, a real gust of wind from the cloud sea, blows across the terrace. It passes right through her arm, causing her form to shimmer and distort like a reflection in disturbed water. What is happening to her, you ask, your voice barely a whisper. The ambrosia sustains their immortality, Lyros explains, his voice heavy with an ancient sorrow. But it is mortal belief that gives them cohesion. It is the anchor that holds their form together against the chaos of divinity. Their power comes from within, but their reality comes from without. He explains that Althea's valley was abandoned generations ago. A plague, a famine. The reason is lost to time. Her people died out or moved on. Her name was forgotten. The last person to whisper a prayer to her died a century ago. Since then, she has been slowly, inexorably unraveling. This is the ultimate fate of the lesser gods, a truth the Olympians ignore. You recall the Roman concept of the genius loci, the spirit of a place. Every river, every mountain, every grove had its own minor deity. They were vital, important. But as empires grew and pantheons were consolidated, thousands of them were forgotten, their stories absorbed or erased. Althea is a genius loci, whose place no longer exists. She is an idea without a mind to hold it. You notice a bizarre, heartbreaking detail. Clutched in her translucent hand is a single, perfectly preserved pinnacone. It is solid, real, the last tangible piece of the grove she once ruled. She strokes it with a thumb that flickers in and out of view, a gesture of someone trying to remember a forgotten feeling. Her voice, when she speaks, is a faint echo. The wind. It sounds different now. She is not just fading. Her very senses, her memories are eroding. She will not remember she was ever a goddess at all. She will simply dissolve back into the raw, undifferentiated energy of the cosmos. Lyros looks at her with a profound, painful empathy. The great ones Zeus, Hera, Apollo, they are sustained by the belief of millions. They are vast, stable constructs of faith. They see this. He gestures to the fading goddess as a natural culling, the price of obscurity. They feel no pity. Why would they? They are buffered from it by the dust of indifference. He looks at you, his lapis eyes seeming to see right through you. I have survived because I am a story told in these halls. The servants whisper of the old man with the stone eye. Their memory gives me form. You survived because you acted. You created a new story. You made yourself real. You look at Althea, a being of immense, forgotten power. And you feel a kinship with her that you have never felt with the brilliant, terrible Olympians. She is a victim of the one thing gods cannot control, being forgotten. And you are immortal, a creature defined by a fleeting existence, desperate to be remembered. You are two sides of the same existential coin. But the question that remained was, in a world where existence is powered by memory, is it better to be a god who fades into nothing, or a mortal who is remembered even for a moment as a hero? Lyros's words, you created a new story, ignite something within you, a desperate, flickering ember of agency. You are not just a survivor, you are a player. The realization does not bring you comfort, but a terrifying clarity. You have seen all the pieces, You understand the stakes, and you know a secret that could bring the heavens crashing down. As you follow Leros back into the service tunnels, he turns to you, his face grim. Your actions in the grove did not go unnoticed, he says. You pleased Kairos, but you defied the twins. They will not forget. You have made yourself significant, and on Olympus, significance is a target. He leads you to a small, forgotten storeroom, piled high with broken lyres and discarded ceremonial robes. In the center of the room, scratched into the dusty floor, is a complex diagram of interlocking circles and celestial alignments. It is a map, but not of a physical place. This is not a door, Lero says, tracing one of the lines with a gnarled finger. It is a crack, a flaw in the design of this place, a way out. He explains that the passage you arrived through was a summons, a one-way line reeled in by the gods. But there are other ways, unsanctioned ways. This diagram maps a convergence, a moment when the metaphysical barriers between Olympus and the mortal world become thin, porous. It is a celestial alignment that happens only once a generation, when the moon, the earth, and a specific, distant star, known to mortal astronomers as Algol the demon star form, a perfect, straight line. This star, infamous in mortal astrology for its association with misfortune, is in reality a cosmic weak point, a place where the fabric of reality is naturally thin. When the alignment is perfect, for a few brief moments, a pathway flickers into existence. It is not a gentle journey, Leros warns, his voice grave. The passage that brought you here was a brutal utility. This is a chaotic rupture. To pass through it is to risk being torn apart, your body and soul scattered across the void. It is a desperate gamble. Most who try do not survive. He points to a specific point on the diagram. The alignment begins in 2 cycles. The window will be open for less time than it takes a hummingbird to beat its wings. You must be there, and you must be ready. He has given you the ultimate gift, a choice. You can remain here, a servant walking a tightrope of terror, hoping your wits and Lyros's guidance can keep you alive in the crossfire of a celestial war. Or you can risk utter annihilation for a chance, however slim, to return home. As you stare at the diagram, the full weight of your journey settles upon you. You are no longer the frightened, disoriented mortal who was spat out onto the obsidian floor. You are a being who has looked into the heart of divinity and seen not perfection, but fear, vanity, and sorrow. You have felt the phantom passions of a goddess's girdle, heard the ugly truth in a god's music, and witnessed the slow, agonizing dissolution of a forgotten deity. Your thoughts are interrupted by a faint, rhythmic sound from outside the storeroom. Clack, clack, clack. It is a slow, deliberate sound, like 2 pieces of wood being struck together. It is coming down the corridor. Lyros stiffens, his one good eye wide with a terror you have never seen in him before. He pushes you behind a stack of moth-eaten robes, his hand on your shoulder trembling. Do not move, do not breathe, he hisses. The sound grows closer. Clack, clack, clack. A figure appears in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. It is not a god or a servant you recognize. The figure is impossibly tall and gaunt, draped in a simple dark robe. Its face is obscured by shadow, but you can see that its hands are not flesh. They are made of gnarled, dark wood. In one hand, it holds a long wooden spindle. In the other, a simple, unadorned measuring stick. As it steps into the room, you see that its feet do not touch the floor. Glides, silent except for the clacking sound, which you now realize comes from a pair of wooden shears that hang from its belt, knocking against each other with its movement. It is not Zeus, it is not Hera, or any of their court. It is something older, something more fundamental. It glides past your hiding place, its head turning from side to side, as if searching. Its gaze sweeps over the diagram on the floor, and for a moment it pauses. Then, its shadowed face turns slowly, directly towards your hiding spot. It cannot see you, but it feels you. It feels the frantic, unwritten future beating in your heart. It is one of the Moirai, the Fates. You have stumbled into the path of a being that doesn't just witness the tapestry of life. It weaves the very threads. As it raises its wooden hand, you see the thread it is holding, stretching from its spindle out into the void. It is a simple, earth-colored thread. and with a surge of pure primal dread, you recognize it as your own. The fate stands before you, a silent, absolute authority. The wooden shears at its hip are not a threat, they are a fact. The thread it holds is your life, your past, your present, and your yet unwritten future. You are frozen in a state of terror so pure it is almost calm. This is beyond the petty squabbles of the Olympians. This is the base code of reality. The being's shadowed face tilts, an ancient, unreadable gesture of consideration. It sees you, sees the knowledge you carry, the choices you have made, the impossible path that lies before you. It sees the diagram on the floor, the desperate scratchings of a mortal seeking to break the pattern. Lyros is equally still beside you, a statue carved from fear. His lapis eye is dark, its usual swirling light extinguished. Even his curse cannot read the intentions of a being like this. The fate raises its other hand, the one holding the measuring stick. It is not an act of aggression, it is an act of assessment. It is measuring the length of your story, the weight of your choices. The silence stretches, becoming a physical presence in the room, crushing the air from your lungs. You think of your home, a fleeting, painful image of green fields and a familiar sky. You think of the fading goddess Althea, dissolving into nothingness. You think of Athena's loom and the snipped golden thread of the hero. Your life is a story, and you have come to its final, unwritten page. Then, something impossible happens. From the corridor, a new sound emerges, soft and melodic. It is the clear, perfect note of a single lyre string being plucked. The sound hangs in the dead air of the storeroom, a note of pure, unwavering harmony. The fate pauses, its head turning towards the sound, Apollo. Another note joins the first, then another, weaving a simple, achingly beautiful melody. It is not the analytical, dissecting music he played in the library. This is something else. It is a plea, an argument. The God of truth is not speaking to you or to the fate. He is speaking to the pattern. He is making a case, through music, for a deviation in the design. As Apollo's music swells, a second presence makes itself felt. A chill enters the room, the scent of cold moonlit air and damp earth. A single silver arrow embeds itself in the wooden doorframe, humming with a silent, contained power. It is not an attack, it is a marker, a claim. Artemis has laid her boundary. Her brother argues with harmony. She argues with a declaration of sovereignty. The huntress is protecting her territory, and in a bizarre, unforeseen twist, you have become part of it. The twins, whom you defied and betrayed, are now, for their own inscrutable reasons, shielding you. Your defiance in the grove, your mortal solution to their divine problem, has made you a point of contention, an asset neither is willing to concede. The fate stands motionless, caught between the god of order and the goddess of the wild. It holds your thread, but its hand is stayed. The celestial alignment Lyros spoke of is happening now. The window is opening. The diagram on the floor begins to glow with a faint silvery light. Lyros grabs your arm, his touch shockingly strong. Now he hisses, his voice raw with urgency. The choice is now, the path home, or this beautiful, terrible, gilded prison, where you have become so significant that the gods themselves will fight over the right to claim you. This is the impossible decision. To stay is to accept a life as a pawn in an eternal game, protected for now, but a target forever. It is a life of familiar terror, of navigating the deadly whims of your patrons. To leave is to leap into a chaotic void, to risk complete annihilation for a chance at a life that may no longer even feel like your own. You look at the glowing diagram, the crack in reality. You look at the fate, holding your life in its wooden fingers. You feel the pull of Apollo's perfect music and the cold, possessive power of Artemis's arrow. You have become a part of the story of Olympus, and the story is not over. The choice is yours. The escape you have dreamed of, or the cage you have learned to survive, the unknown oblivion, or the gilded terror. The window is open. The music fades. The chill recedes. The story for now draws to a close. As you stand on that precipice of choice, the echoes of Olympus soften, the grand, terrifying figures of the gods pulling back into the mists of myth. The golden light of the mountain dims, replaced by the familiar, gentle darkness behind your own closed eyes. The tension in your shoulders can begin to release, the frantic beat of your heart slowing to a steady, quiet rhythm. The weight of divine secrets lifts, leaving only the quiet stillness of your own thoughts. Breathe in the scent of your own world, the solid reality of the ground beneath you. The epic has ended, the danger has passed. Let the final images dissolve like morning mist, leaving behind not fear, but the quiet resonance of a story told. The tale is over. You are safe. You are home.